imagine Jeff Piedmont doing that here in Syracuse. So I think the next police chief got to be somebody that really got a lot of courage and go in there and change the whole culture so that our communities get respect. They're about being peace officers, not using their military experience in Iraq and Afghanistan to, come in and occupy.
Thank you, Howie. Next question.
Hello, my name is Sam Rouser. I'm a lifelong resident of Syracuse and executive director for On Point for College. I was very happy to hear Laura when she talked about having a post-secondary plan for students graduating from high school. And I have a question, but I just want to preference with a few statistics first. On Point has helped over 6,200 students from the Syracuse area go off to college. We have somewhere between 700 and 1,000 new people that walk into our doors each year that are interested in going to college. We have about 400 new students that start college each year, about over 3,000 students that are now in college, and over 1,900 graduates. So my question to you is, if you become mayor, would you financially support On Point for College? Because this is the best economic plan you have, is young people coming back to the community to work. We get a few dollars from the county. The county does support On Point. We don't get any money from the city.
Wow. I'll start.
I want everybody to say something. Start with the On Point student though.
I can't have everybody, for the sake of time.
Just say yes or no.
Okay.
Just say yes or no, you support it.
I would do more than support it financially. I would also make sure, as an On Point student, it took me a long time to find a job once I graduated. There are so many businesses in this community that are looking for educated people. So, in addition to looking for more money, I would make sure that bridge is there so that we're no longer having a pool of people who are getting degrees but feel like they need to leave.
Laura? Patient.
The answer is yes. Where'd the gentleman go? Yes. Thank you for your question. The answer is yes. We know that children who are born and raised in poverty hear millions fewer words before they enter kindergarten than children not born and raised in poverty. That puts them at a severe disadvantage when it comes to learning to read. If you don't learn to read, and if you are not reading on grade level, by the time you reach 3rd grade, you're behind the 8 ball as it relates to graduating from high school. If you don't graduate from high school, you are most likely destined to a life of continued poverty, heightened increase for chance of incarceration, health problems, child development problems. We absolutely need to support what you are doing. As mayor, I will use the bully pulpit to do everything I can to provide the Syracuse City School Districts and your new fine superintendent the resources that he needs to make sure that your teachers, your non-instructional staff have the support they need to ensure that students graduate with their cohort and have a plan for after high school.
And you support On Point once they graduate
That's
financially.
correct. And including tracking longitudinal data to see where those students go after their post-secondary.
We work with them from application to graduation.
Yes.
And I would even elaborate on that before they even get to On Point for that graduation rate for them, because we have our children being pushed out of high school not knowing how to read, write, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, the basics, before they even get to college. So, of course, with respect to On Point, you do really great work, thank you. But it's a crisis in our school system, I'm sure we all can agree. So maybe that can be a question. Does anybody have a question about?
May I just say one more
Yes,
thing?
go ahead, Laura.
Back to the gentleman who spoke about the SROs in the school, and I certainly understand concerns about SROs in schools. But when parents and guardians send their children to school every day, it's with the expectation and the trust and the confidence that their children will be safe in those schools. I have been hiring, I'm sad to say, teachers from the Syracuse City School District who are afraid to come to work because their schools aren't safe. It makes me sad. It breaks my heart that teachers in the city in which I live are fleeing the schools because they are afraid to come to work. So I really do understand and am sensitive to the concerns that I think you're conveying about SROs, but when SROs are well utilized and you hire well, those people are forging relationships with students. And those students are coming to learn and know and respect the SROs. And they do play a very important role in making sure that the schools are safe. But to the point again, if you're not on grade level, and if you aren't reading and calculating by the end of 3rd grade, you're behind the 8 ball for the rest of your school career. So as mayor, I know we've talked about this a lot, I talk about education a lot, that's my perspective. That, I think, is the answer, is the key to almost all of the problems of our city. Economic development, safety, quality of life in the neighborhoods, crime, poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Next question.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Clifford Ryan, and I'm a lifelong resident of Syracuse as well. I do the nonviolent organization of OGs Against Violence, grassroots. And I'm also on the Citizens Review Board. I just got on there. And one of the problems that the Citizen Review Board is having with the police department is getting them to come to the table and address the very issues that we have been discussing as far as the police department is concerned. They've been told not to come to the table by their union president. I believe his name is Mr. Piedmont. What do you plan to do about that to let the citizens know in the community that the officers can be held accountable when they do the misconduct? Because, as we said, there's a lot of misconduct going on. And also, grassroots organizations such as myself, I go up in the schools and I reach out to the young people on my own. Today, I went up to Lincoln Junior High School and I went up to Corcoran High School, and I go inside the schools and I reach out to the young people to help make our schools safe. I just want to know from the candidates, what do you plan to do about the police department not coming to the table as far as the Citizen Review Board is concerned? And what do you plan to do about helping up-and-coming grassroots organizations who are putting a strong service for the community as far as the schools and trying to help make the community safe? What do you plan to do about that?
Let's address this first question. Ben, you want to take that first about the review board? And,
Sure.
And holding the police accountable and engaging with the review board?
And I just, before I do that, or as part of doing that, I just want to give Cliff a shout out. Cliff is everywhere in this community, putting his own life on the line, and thank you for what you do. What it comes down to is an issue of trust. And the reason the union president of the police department is telling his officers not to go is because he doesn't trust the process. And the reason that the process exists is because the people don't trust the police. And and I think what we need to do is to have empathy and to understand better where each side is coming from. And the way you do that is you bring people together and talk. And so it's not the Citizens Review Board developing the policy and then trying to force the police department to follow it. It's doing it together. And that's what's missing in this particular issue, on so many other issues. There's a reason why I spend so much time in this room. It's because if I'm not in this room, I don't know what's happening in this community. And we need to spend more time in the same room, and it goes for the review board, and absolutely I'm going to make sure that the review board works and works well, and that the police department is working well with it.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to say, it's got to start with the police chief. The culture's got to change. And that chief should encourage the officer to go. Now, I know he's got a union issue, but I think that officer, a quarter of the officers now can retire. And we come in with community policing and crime prevention. That's where the grassroots comes in, as an emphasis, coming from the top of the police department. Some of these cowboy cops are going to say, well, I'm going to another department, or I'm going to retire. You get new people in there that see the CRB as part of making their job be done correctly. The other thing they did in Richmond that's interesting is they took the investigations of what internal investigations by the police, took it out of police headquarters, moved it over to City Hall, and had an Office of Professional Ethics do the investigation. Now, the chief of police made the final disciplinary decisions, but it like got it out of there so they could get an objective view. And they hired a former cop, lawyer, and judge to be that author. And so they changed not just what they have a CRB too, not just what they could do, but who the cops were and how they related to those institutions in the city. And until you have that, you're not going to have the trust and the commitment. It's going to be a fight, and it's a big contract issue. Like I remember they kept saying, we're not answering subpoenas because it's not in the contract with the police contract.
Laura, you want to wrap that up?
Just a quick response to that. As a school leader, superintendents deal with different bargaining units and contracts and unions all the time. You have to lead, yes, as a school leader, we deal with bargaining units and contracts all of the time. You don't allow that to get in the way of the work that needs to be done.
Leaders lead by example, and that includes showing respect for constituents and all the different stakeholder groups and all the members of the bargaining units. Having a contract doesn't preclude you from sitting around a table and hammering out the issues. You find out the areas in which you agree, and you capitalize on those areas. You find out the areas in which you disagree, and you don't leave until you figure it out. Contracts and unions have there's no excuse. Contracts and unions are not the reason not to have leadership, cooperation, and collaboration. It gets done all the time. Thank you.
Next question.
Good evening. I'm Corey Hudson. I'm a resident of the Southside. Owned my home for 11 years. I'm a native of Long Island. I'm an educator. Worked in higher ed for 13 years, and I worked in the school district for 2 years. I'm a community activist. I work with the NAACP currently. But, so I like what you said. You said leadership by example. And I have some examples here of poor leadership that I'm going to refresh all the memories about. I remember there was a multi-million-dollar tax break given to Destiny USA. Okay. I remember that there was a plan for a stadium to be built in downtown Syracuse that somehow was declined by one individual. And I also remember, regarding that multi-million-dollar tax break, we're going to give him that company a tax break, but Joe Schmo that's trying to hold his home together, we're going to kick him out via the land bank. Okay. I just wanted to get that out. And then also, we have a sour relationship with our governor, but yet money's flowing from Tully to Rochester, Buffalo, $1 million state funds going to these cities, building up neighborhoods, building up communities, helping people, but nothing for Syracuse. So I refresh our memories with these core examples of leadership. And I want to, and they all have to deal with the root of our issue, which is poverty. Poverty is affecting our education, poverty is affecting our crime, poverty is affecting our family development. What is your plan in a positive, good leadership example for dealing with poverty on the South Side? Because I believe currently we don't have a comprehensive economic plan for the South Side. Or the city. Or the city. So what is your plan? Thank you.
Go ahead, Raymond.
Let me tell you why stuff doesn't get done in Syracuse. It's not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's a leadership issue. And when people get into a room together and they're not willing to compromise, and if you're not mature enough to say, we can still do business on some of the dockets, some of the bullet points that we agree on, then you get the situation like we have currently. So the next mayor has to be someone who can work with people. That's more critical than being in government for 20 years, more critical than being an elected, having elected experience. If you don't know how to work with people you hate, if you don't know how to work with people you don't like for the sake of you all, it's going to be a disaster, a continuous disaster. Republican or Democrat.
Joe, you want to tackle that question?
Yeah, let Marty go first.
Okay. Marty?
Joe wants me to get my answers, and then he's going to use them. That's why. Corey, my apologies. Thank you for the question. Going to touch on a few things. The Destiny Project, I was on the Common Council about a week. We had unbelievable spirited debate when that went on. I ultimately voted for it. Actually, it passed 9-0 at the time. Some of the biggest proponents, Kate O'Connell, Mayor Minor, Steve DeRegis, it passed unanimously, and really because it released some money to the city budget that was otherwise tied up, if you will, within other economic development projects, which is ultimate. That agreement is good in a way that it did create some jobs. High-paying jobs, some. I mean, some of the managers and some are doing okay, and those store managers, etc. Is there a ton of low-paying jobs? Of course there is, which is why that tax break was too rich.
But can I offer also, at that time that Destiny was coming about, there was a great amount of marketing for high-paying jobs. People left their careers, and then a couple of months later, they were canned.
The Destiny did that. That actually was, the agreement I'm referring to was in January of 2002. That one was the do-over, if you will, in 2005. So, and that was not passed by the Common Council. Mayor Driscoll at the time went to the IDA, who passed that on. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that agreement. I was speaking to the O2 agreement. My apologies, I should have been more clear. As far as the stadium goes, I will go twofold on this. A, is there was a lot of government money, the $50 million, if I recall, that the state was bringing in to that proposal. That could have been a great project if we knew what it was. There was no specific plan. It was, we're going to build a stadium, it's going to be great, and we're going to have, I think, Syracuse and Crunch games there. They're really, the exact plan was never well defined, including what it meant to Syracuse Police, Syracuse Fire, Syracuse DPW, etc. Now, I disagreed with the mayor at that point and said, we should have taken it a step further. Let's find out what the plan is. But it was halted at that time. And I do.
You want to wrap it up?
I will wrap it up. And last and certainly not least, you mentioned relationships with others. I can even speak to everybody at this table who essentially is my opponent at this time. I have great working relationships with both Democrats. I work well with the county executive. There will be a good relationship with my administration with all forms of government.
Joe?
Yes. I think this question hits on the essence of what it means to be mayor, and it's probably the most important question. I've spent my entire life working in public service because I love it, and just like other people here do different things, or they want to spend their life doing it. But it requires, to be successful, not only leadership, it requires humility, the ability to compromise, the ability to work together, the ability to say, I made a mistake, and the ability to forgive and forget. But it also requires something that you touched on, and that is one word, it's called relationships. We no longer can live as a city unto itself. We don't have the resources. We have high levels of poverty. We have all sorts of things happening that are happening in other cities. What we really need to do is we have to have relationships. And I have those relationships. I have them starting with the governor. What was that me? I have them starting with the governor, who I've known since he was a kid when I worked for his father on all the campaigns. I have them with the county executive. And I have them because I served in the assembly, and I know the leadership of the current assembly and the current senate. That is the only way we are going to be able to succeed. And those relationships will bring resources, as you have said. I'm sick of seeing the governor dump millions of dollars all around the city of Syracuse and Buffalo and Rochester. I'm going to welcome the governor here to get that money so we can develop job training, we can develop housing programs to help all people in this community.
Thank you, Joe. Just to emphasize, planning is wonderful, policies are great, but relationships are the key. As elected officials, I just want to, on behalf of the community, your job is to represent the people. So relationships with the county, with the governor are essential. There's no secret that the current mayor, Mayor Minor, had a challenging relationship across the board. So as elected officials, or as whoever becomes our mayor, you know, we want a commitment that you are open to relationships, that you are willing to be at the table to work with other people on behalf of the people that you serve. Thank you. Next question.
I did come up here to talk about the police, because that's very important in my community. When something used to happen in my community, I called the police. I don't even call the police anymore, because they're out of control. Now, what I'm going to say is, when a child is in the 2nd grade and they can't read, and we're spending billions of dollars on the school system, there is something the matter with the school system. Because if a child can't read in the 2nd grade, you should be teaching them in the 3rd and the 4th grade. I sit and I listen, I go to these school board meetings, and I go to other places, and I hear this all the time. Something is wrong with this system when a child can't read in the 2nd, and you're telling us that that child is doomed. That child should not be doomed. That child should be taught how to read, because maybe something is wrong. You should, and I go to the school board I used to go all the time to the meetings. I can't understand how education is so important. It is so important to every child especially in the United States, because that's where I am. One of the things that I'm not understanding about, you're talking about running for mayor in Syracuse, and the things that I'm hearing tonight are off the wall. We need more police. Police don't stop crime. They don't stop crime. There's other reasons why we have crime in our community, and getting more police is not going to help. The police come in our community, I mean, like they're Nazis. They do all kinds of stuff. I've seen all kinds of things that they do in our community. To our children, to older people, they talk to us like we're dogs.
That's it.
You know?
Did you have a question? We appreciate your.
I want to know about the school, because the school is very important.
Right.
Other people have talked about the police, but when I was sitting over there and thinking about the police, and I said, when people came here and talked, I said, the police is so important, what they do in our community, because they do us horrible.
Yes.
So the question of the Board of Education.